Marty, thank you so much for doing this. We connected really yesterday. We connected on X, and it worked out that you had some time available today. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm semi-retired, so I got lots of time. I make time. I make time for important discussions.
Well, and I want to start off with just asking you, how are you feeling right now?
In light of the fact that we just had an election in Canada, or in general? I mean, in general, I feel good. I'm at the prime of my life. I'm 57 years old. Had a nice career in the oil patch, and I did everything right in life, and it rewarded me. I feel bad after this election because the younger generation of Canadians, my children, are who followed my advice and did everything right, aren't doing so well. So it's I'm disappointed. We're getting wow, we're diving right into the wax poetic, but I'm disappointed. I think I'm going to be the first generation of Canadians whose kids won't have done as well as as their parents, right? I mean, that was my father's wishes. Like, my father only had one wish in life. Dad was a dirt poor farmer, and he was like, I want my kids to do better than me. And I succeeded. I did better than my father by a long shot, and I wanted the same thing for my kids, but my kids aren't going to do as well. And so before you and I hit the record button, we're talking about music, the CDs on the shelf in the 1990s, and like I this is not the best time in Canadian history right now.
Well, I've said this. Said it to people on here, and I've also said it to people personally, where the most difficult, I think, age group through this whole transformation that we're going through now, both in Canada, the United States, and really globally, the ones that are going to be most affected by that are people you and I's age, because we knew a better world. Where the
Yes.
younger people, they didn't know digital is what they know, iPhones are what they know. We played outside. There were challenging times, but you always seem to get through it. Not to say we're not going to get through it in some way, shape, or form, but I think it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult as we move into this new era. This episode is brought to you by McIlvaney Financial Group. Their advisors bring a depth of knowledge and experience that allow them to serve their clientele with care, ensuring their financial needs are met now and in the future. Personally, I'm not saying cash is worthless, but you can see what's happening. It's worth less every year. Gold is the opposite. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to www.mcilvaney.com/coffeeandamike.
Yeah, that's a great observation. I mean, definitely we knew a couple of generations. I mean, the one just before me, the boomers knew a pretty good time too. I mean, they're post-war. Like, we've had a long peace, so that's positive, right? We've had a long peace in North America, so that's pretty positive. Most people haven't had that kind of suffering, the suffering that Europeans had in the 1930s and the 1920s. But yeah, we've had economic suffering, we've had other suffering, but yeah, I like what you said. I mean, we we can remember the good old days. Actually, that's an interesting expression. I'm going to go back to my father. My father hated that expression. My father hated that expression. Like, when you said to my dad, the good old days, dad would say, what, like shoveling coal on the farm and going out and chopping firewood and, sitting on a cold outhouse. I'm like, okay, maybe not. Yeah, okay, maybe your old days, but you and I can wax poetic about our good old days, like 19 the and I get asked that by Canadians all the time, by fellow Canadians, like, which years did you like? I'm like, boy, from I have no complaints of anything from 1995 to 2014. I mean, I had a glorious 20 years there that was fantastic. Now, the good news is I think we can go back to that. Like, I don't think we're too far gone. I think we can recapture some of that.
Why do you think that?
Why do I think we can recapture it? Or,
Yes.
like, we some of the things we progressed can be reversed. And like, I'm an engineer. I'll put it this way. I'm an engineer by training, right? So as an engineer, I'm always trying to improve things. And once in a while, I'll make a change that doesn't work so good, and I'll reverse that change, and then I'll start again. Lately, politicians are reluctant to admit that some of the things they've done haven't worked. But I think broadly, some people are finally waking up and going, that doesn't work, right? Like maybe it's a broader economic policy, maybe it's other policies, like and things have unintended consequences, and that's what I'm sort of saying. I don't have a specific example. We could get into specific examples, but we are drugs. Let's go there. Hopefully, here's an example, right? Like let's legalize all these drugs. Well, I'm not sure that's working for us. That's an example. I'm not sure that's working for us. Like I look at some of the cities and some of the crime rates and whatnot, and I'm like, maybe we reverse that. Maybe that's an example of something. Maybe this out of control immigration isn't working for us. We thought it was going to solve a certain problem, but now we have another problem. We have a housing crisis in this country. So maybe this out of control isn't working. Maybe this over reliance on government isn't working. So there's a couple of things. If I sit down and really think about what was working well in the 1990s and what's not today, I can see a few things that if we reverse them, we get ourselves back to that better era.
Yeah, and I think that I had voted for when they legalized marijuana in Arizona. I made the mistake of voting for it to be legal, and in hindsight, not that it would have mattered; it was going to pass anyway. But
Yeah, yeah.
it was one of the worst. That being allowed to occur, and it's happening. I don't even know how many states now here it's legal, but it's happening more and more, and they just want to get people cloudy, foggy, distracted. And the marijuana today versus, say when I was smoking when I was in high school, it's so much powerful.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, I didn't want to single out marijuana, but I want like I can think of other things. I mean, like some things are harder to reverse, like technology. We talked about technology. Technology is harder to reverse. This beast is hard to reverse, but we can do it, right? Why were we better in the 1990s? I didn't have one of these. I didn't have one of these in the 1990s. So when I left the office in the 1990s, I disconnected from work. Nobody was sending me emails constantly on my phone 24 hours a day. So I disconnected from work. If I was a kid in the 1990s and I went skating, for me, my mom had no idea where I was. I'm gone skating. She didn't have one of these. She wasn't tracking me with one of these, but instead we talked. We had a bit of an agreement. I said to her, I'm going to the skating rink and I'll be back. What time do you want me back home, Mom? Mom would say 6 o'clock for dinner. Done. Now, so there's these things that this is an example. There's policies that have crept into our lives that haven't made things better. There's technology that have crept into our lives that haven't made things better. And like this is an example. Here in Alberta, we're trying to pass laws to make these illegal in the classroom. And I'm weirdly it's being fought. Like people are like, what do you mean? You're taking away a child's right to have a phone, and you're taking away a parent's right to know what the child is doing. I'm like, wow, for generations before us, we didn't have that right, but now you're creating an artificial right that I don't think is actually working. So yeah, weird topic. I didn't think we'd be going there with this one, but yeah, that's so to your answer to your original question. I personally feel good, but we just had an election today that this week that makes me that confirms that we're going down a path that I'm not happy about.
Well, and that's where, what we touched on a few minutes ago, where we knew a better world. And see, my whole thing with this now is a slippery slope I think it's inevitable where this all goes because, with the introduction to the phone and I mean, people are just, I mean, you're driving around and people are just they're sucked in, crossing the street, in the stores. And I get pushback. I've gotten like some nasty comments on my channel because they think I'm like some CBDC supporter. I'm not, but I also want us to, look objectively where this thing is going. And you do everything on the phone. Everything. You pay your bills on the phone. You check in the airports on the phone. People are not willing to give it up. And I know people will say, well, I pay with, I use cash and credit card. Okay. You don't think they track your credit card? You walk into a bank, there's cameras in every single branch you walk into to get cash. They don't.
We could get into real deep on this one because I actually happen to have worked for IBM for a few years, in the last 5 years, I did contract work for IBM, and I got scared when I saw what artificial intelligence was doing, and the ability to the ability to collect information that was at hand, and how that information can use. I mean, I was at a conference in Vegas, a big IBM conference, and when I came back from that conference, I told my wife, I'm like, you will never be able to resist an offer from a retailer in the future. You just won't, because the offer from the retailer will be so incredibly specific and specified and personal to you that you won't be able to resist it, because they'll have gathered so much information. The moment you walk into that Walmart or whatever that thing is, the camera will detect your phone, your credit card, the sensors will detect you. They'll know everything about you. And then as you go to the cash register, they'll go, hey, Marty, we have a sale on size 32 jeans right now for $18.99. And you'll just go, wow, how'd you guys know I was looking for jean size 32? Like and that's an example on retail. And people go, well, it's convenient. I'm like, yeah, it's convenient. Sure, it's convenient. But when you let them do something because it's convenient, there's always this nefarious ability that comes with it, right? It's convenient to let the government drive your car, or to have a self-driving car. I mean, I was in Austin last week. I was blown away by self-driving cars. Blown away.
We have them here. We have them all over the place here in Phoenix.
And conversely, now, and somebody will say, oh, well, if that, then I'll argue I can take control of that car for good reason. So if somebody commits a felony and they're driving away, instead of having to chase them down the highway, I'll hit the button, I'll stop that car. That's great. That sounds great. But then later on, if you don't pay your taxes, or you exceeded your CO2 emissions, I'm going to disable your car. And then it builds from there. So that's, yeah.
I'm never getting one of those things. I was on a run, out running, and I saw a guy getting into one of those, the Waymo. I don't know what they have in Austin, if it's the same thing, but they're the driverless Waymo cars. Yep. They're Jaguar SUVs. And I was joking around with a guy. I go, hey, hopefully your ex didn't order this for you. She might either be driving you to prison, or driving you off a cliff. And he just kind of laughed. But yeah,
it's not far-fetched. There's nothing far-fetched about what you just said. Absolutely nothing far-fetched about that. I mean, we used to joke that whenever a bus exploded in Iran, you go like, who was on the bus, right? Because like it was whatever, the Mossad had exploded the bus, and then sure turned out there was a nuclear scientist on the bus. Well, that's the same idea now. I mean, I've become kind of cynical that way, but when a plane crashes, or even a boat, right? You guys had that big incident last year, or where was it, in Baltimore? A big boat goes and hits the pier right in the right spot. And everybody says it's an accident. I'm like, sure, maybe it is an accident, but the odds of it also being nefarious it's completely easy to take control of a boat. Like it's, yeah.
I look at those driverless cars, and I think to the movie. It's amazing how these movies, even from the '90s, and you see you're like, wow, they really knew this was on the horizon. I mean, indirectly, I think of those Johnny Cabs from Total Recall.
Yes. Or from The Fifth Element, or lots of shows had those. Absolutely. Actually, that's movie writers are a brilliant bunch, right? Like I've heard, I don't think it's fiction. I know that the 3-letter agencies in the U.S. do bring in the movie writers once in a while and pick their brains, because they're forecasting things that, well, actually, never mind the movie writers, just bring in the Simpsons. Whoever writes the Simpsons, bring those guys in, because they're forecasting the future. So yeah.
How about so funny about The Simpsons? I went to high school with a guy who was a writer for them for 11 years. He got a degree at Harvard in cognitive neuroscience.
And ended up writing for...
He was president of the Harvard Lampoon. He's my age. And then went out there. I didn't want to go to medical school, and got an audition and was hired and became a producer. But cognitive neuroscientist. Interesting, right? Study of the brain.
Yeah.
What else did you see then working for IBM, like when you were in Vegas? And how long ago was this?
It was about 5 years ago. I worked with them 2 years. That's when I discovered Twitter, actually, because so I'm big on X, right, on Twitter, but we were mining Twitter. We were mining a lot of things. I mean, when I worked at IBM, like just for people who are listening, just so you know, like you call this a phone, sure, but from a scientific point of view, this is 28 sensors, right? This is a GPS, this is a gyroscope, this is a temperature thermometer, it's an altimeter, it's a camera, it's a light detector. Like it's got 30 sensors in there that are never, unless you, even when you turn it off, they're still on. And the information that's on here is being sold all the time. I mean, if you look at a map of if you look at Google Map and you see, and they're indicating that there's traffic at a certain intersection, what they're doing is they're not being specific to a phone, but they know that there's 43 telephone or phones at that location that have slowed down, are not accelerating. So those sensors in people's pockets allow us to predict traffic. And if I want to, so when I worked at IBM, we worked on a project to predict where a lightning strike was going to occur. And so, I got meteorological data coming from airplanes and everything else. And then I got people with their phones. And so while I have these phones, I can collect temperature data from areas, lighting data, and I can connect text, right? So I'm predicting that in a certain neighborhood in wherever you live, it looks like the data is showing that there's a sudden drop in temperature. But now I'm looking at all the texts, and I don't care who's texting, but I'm seeing texts from people saying, hey, Larry, it's Bob. We're at this restaurant, but we're moving indoors because it looks like it's going to rain. So, and the computer takes all that information and goes, there's going to be a lightning strike on the corner of such and such at, in the next 20 minutes. And then the city of whatever, Pittsburgh, would coordinate and make sure that they had a crew nearby to restore the power. So that's real artificial intelligence being used for good uses, but it can be used for bad uses. So we were doing that kind of stuff at IBM. Like, it was crazy.
And this was 5 years ago.
5 years ago. I don't even want to think what's going on today. Like, I mean, I look at, IBM had something called Watson, a precursor to Chat GPT and Grok and other things. And we were releasing those things for free. We call them the APIs. And I can just imagine what they're doing. I mean, when I worked at IBM, we had little contests internally to try and come up with ideas. Somebody said something like 5 years ago, somebody said, what if I take a picture of my food plate? It's cute, but what if I take a picture of my food and my computer determines how many calories are in there and then links it to my watch and then says how many calories I ate today? That was a weird idea at the time. Today, like, that's a done deal, man. Like, I have a watch. I should know better, but I have a watch that's tracking so much information about me. But I can tell very precisely how many calories I ate from different sources, including taking a picture of my food.
Well, and the thing with that though too, it's like I was actually in a yoga class the other day, and the studio I go to, they just started a YouTube channel, and this woman yells out after class, she's like, "Now they're going to be able to track you. Now now you have a YouTube handle, you create a username and password, and you're gonna be tracked." And then starts questioning the instructor, like, "Do you have a real ID? Because they're gonna track you." And I'm just like, you know what? First of all, and I didn't work. I don't have your background, but let's see if I'm accurate here with what I'm about to tell you. You have a credit card. If you use it, of course, cash. Like I said earlier, they got you on camera. Everything. I believe this is recorded. Every phone call is probably recorded. Every text message is recorded. They just don't care about you and I enough to where they need to do anything at this point.
But if they needed to, I mean, if this week was the 30th anniversary of the Oklahoma bombing, and they got lucky on that one because they found an axle and then they got a serial number, and then they went from there and they found McVeigh, and then they found Terry Nichols. Man, if there's an explosion today, they'll instantly. I mean, here's an example. We had forest fires all last year. We had forest fires, right? So people think they're going to drive at the end of the road and light a fire and then drive away. Boy, if they got the camera up top on the satellite to detect the fire, they know the fire just got started in a certain area. The fire crew goes out, puts out the fire, and then all they have to do is go, okay, connect me to that red light camera over there and give me a list of all the cars that have gone through in the last hour in both directions. Okay, like it's literally at that point. You watch Star Trek in the good old days, it's all on how you ask the question. You just go, computer, you have to have an idea but even that's going away. Like when I worked at IBM, when we were doing the early artificial intelligence, you still needed sort of an idea, and how you asked the question from the computer mattered, because if you ask the wrong question, you get garbage data or garbage answers back. Now we're at the point where we don't even ask the question. We literally say to the computer, what do you think the question should be? Like, I just had a fire here. What do you think? How do you think I should figure out who started that fire? And the computer will give you a suggestion of how to do it. But in the good old, like, yeah. So to your point, my wife is in that camp. Like, she's still afraid of going online and purchasing online because she might reveal her information. Honey, like, we know everything about you and then some. Yeah.
I think it's impossible to get off grid too. I mean, in today's world, there's nowhere you can hide.
No. If you wanted to do something nefarious with very and limit the ability for anybody to detect you, you would have to start planning it probably 3 years in advance and go off grid for about 3 years. And even then, I don't think you'd succeed. Like, you'd have to take out a pile of money and hope you have enough money to live off grid for 3 years, and not make any kind of purchases for the next 3 years, not show up anywhere. You can't even disguise yourself. They've done this in Europe, right? Like, Europeans, if you go to Europe, you'll see kids that are kind of like painting camouflage paints on themselves. Computer can detect you, not just visual images. They can detect your gait, how you walk, like, you see it on television all the time. Whatever you see on television that looks kind of like futuristic, almost unbelievable. No, it's believable now. Like, the idea of having cameras quickly look at everybody who's driving by and zooming in on an individual, they do that in seconds. And they've demonstrated it, right? I mean, you guys had you got that bombing at the Boston Marathon. What was that, like 4 years ago? They found those guys instantly, because they were on camera all over the place. And then that's nothing. That's just finding them. Then they got to go, okay, where did they buy the pressure cooker? Well, that's easy.
That bombing
Yeah.
the Boston Marathon was 11 years ago, or no, it was 12 years ago. Believe it or
That long
not.
already?
Yeah,
Wow, time
yeah, it was
flies. Yeah.
2013. But I'll tell you, it's there was a girl a mile behind where I live. It had made national news, and she was killed back in the desert. And they got the guy, but one of the ways they got him, he was running back into the desert trail, but a property with car dealership backed into it, and there was a camera that covered that part of the trail, and they got him running, heading towards her, and they were able to
Yeah.
piece it together off of that. So yeah, there's no, I
So
wouldn't.
so just one last point on that. So if they can't find somebody, then at that point it's because they don't want that person found, and the government really doesn't want that person. So when a plane like MH, Malaysian airline, whatever, 370 goes disappearing and we don't know where it went, boy, that's coordinated at the highest levels, because otherwise there's too much technology to find it. That one's fascinating. That one is absolutely fascinating, that we don't know where that plane is. Like, somebody had to do a lot of work.
Well, and every person has a Ring camera in their home. If you don't think they
Yep.
can access that,
Yeah. Your watch, your camera, the credit cards. I mean, yeah, we're walking around with credit cards with microchips on them, and I haven't even looked at the technology in those microchips. But yeah, that's yeah. And our cars, man, our cars are just loaded with computers. Like, a modern car. Actually, it's a funny subject, because I tweeted about this not too long ago. Like, what is the perfect apocalyptic car? It's a Toyota TR5 from like 1980. I mean, you want to find an old pickup truck like that with a distributor cap and no injectors, no computers, nothing like that. It's actually, this is how geeky I am. I mean, I have one of these on my desk, and so I. People are gonna. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, folks. This is an ODB2 reader. So this is just something that I can plug into your car, any car, and then I can read all the information on your car. So if I want to know if my kids are accelerating too fast or doing bad stuff or whatever, when they bring in the car and say, I don't know what's wrong with the car, Dad, I'm like, I'll tell you what's wrong with the car. You're accelerating too fast on it and you're braking like an idiot. So don't pretend, I have a few illegal things. I also happen to have a lock picking set just in case. And
But that what is that? What is that device that you just showed me?
It's an ODB2 car. So every car manufactured follows a pre-approved standard for error codes and data, so that we can connect into the cars and see the history of the car. And it's been around for a long time, and it's getting extremely sophisticated. Sometimes, like if you most of the key fobs that I don't have one. I was trying to find my key fob, but like I have a car that has a key fob, and I can literally download from that key fob a whole ton of information that's stored on the computer. This plugs directly into the computer in the car, but I can also get data off some people's key fobs. So I'll know where you've been driving. I'll know all sorts of things. Like, yeah, it's just science, folks. It's just engineering.
And that's something that anybody can buy, right? I mean, that's not,
$19.95 on the internet on Amazon.
right. So you have access to that, right? People have access to that. Can you only imagine what they have that we don't have access to?
That's why I said if the plane goes disappearing, they know where the plane is. So they've just gone. The efforts to hide where that plane is out of this world. But yeah, like when they find a car now, if there's a car explosion and there's pieces of a car, man, they know so much about that car. It's incredible. They'll know where that car's been for the last 3 years, kind of thing, because it's all logged into the computer. And that's an older car that's say 10 years old. I haven't worked on a Tesla, but I can only imagine the amount of information that's stored in the Tesla. It must be mind boggling. And Elon Musk, like Elon Musk he's not nefarious. He's well intentioned. I mean, he's doing good. But if you look at what Elon Musk is doing, like he's dabbling in like 3 key areas, right? He's in space, communications, Starlink, and automobiles. And he doesn't see a car. I'm pretty sure in his mind, a car is not for him, it's a car, but more importantly, it is a computer. It's a sensor. And then same thing, like Twitter. I became fascinated with Twitter because I've eventually learned that Twitter, sure, we're dialoguing, but people can mine Twitter and get so much information. I mean, I just look, now you got me excited. like I could talk about this kind of stuff all day long. Like, we just had an election. I mean, elections are so hard to win nowadays because both sides, same thing, have this kind of information. They can zoom in. In the good old days, like you guys, for instance, I'll speak in your terms. Like you have the swing states, right? So Trump ignores whatever and says we got to go to Pennsylvania. We got to win Pennsylvania. That's easy. We can all see that. But then once you're in Pennsylvania, it's like, how do I win Pennsylvania? And then they use Facebook and Twitter and everything else, and then they zoom into the part of Pennsylvania or to the certain town or to the neighborhood, literally to the neighborhood. And people go, how can they do that? It's like Facebook, Twitter, I can put people know the obvious ones. They know that if those cute quizzes on Facebook and you answer the quizzes, people say you're giving away your personal information. Sure, that one's pretty blaring, but I can figure out a lot about you by I don't know. I'll put a picture of fireworks saying, here's kids in Pennsylvania celebrating 4th of July fireworks, and then I'll watch for the response. If somebody says they like it, they just like the picture, and then somebody else doesn't like the picture, well, I'll go, okay, that guy's more patriotic, more likely to vote this way, likes fireworks, probably eats Pop-Tarts, blah blah blah, and then with the Facebook and the technology, I can zoom in and we can go, he lives in this part of Pennsylvania, and then hit those guys. That's where we get the wins. Walmart's been doing that forever. I mean, Walmart's phenomenal. Walmart knows when a hurricane's about to hit the West Coast or whatever, South Padre Island. They know right away, start stocking blueberry Pop-Tarts. Done. Because, yeah.
Well, that's where I think, I mean, inevitably this is all going because, I mean, I voted for Trump, but I think that big tech put him in, and I'm not backing off that statement. I don't think the elections matter anymore in this country. I don't know how far back I go to where they didn't matter, but I can tell you, 2020 I was paying attention, 24 I was paying attention, and big tech did everything they could to make sure he did not, sit in that chair of 2020. And here they go. They just paved the way for him. And I think to what you've been talking about, these people are going to be creating the instruments or have created the instruments, Elon. And I think Elon is a little bit, not even a little bit, I think he is nefarious. I mean, this guy has a lot of power. The biggest social media platform, Starlink with the internet. Tesla. And where did he? And people push back saying he made money. He made his money from PayPal. Okay, where did he make the bulk of his wealth? Government contracts.
He made money from government, and you said it earlier, power corrupts, right? That's an old expression, right? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. So it's inevitable. But and you yes, you did remind me of something. So I said earlier when I went to IBM and I realized, I told my wife, you will never be able to walk into the store and resist an offer. Yeah, you're going to have a hard time winning an election now by using the conventional rules, because they're rigged. They're not cheating, they're using technology within the law, and then they're rigged. Listen, I just lived through it, right? If you deconstruct what just happened in Canada and the election we just have, you just have to go, wow, it was an absolute bloodless coup, brilliantly executed, like brilliantly executed. That we had a prime minister who just at the right moment said, I'm proroguing parliament, which is a weird term, but he's like, I'm suspending parliament. And people said, you can't do that. Doesn't matter. He did it. He suspended parliament. While he suspended parliament, his party, the Liberals, our Democrats, did a rapid leadership review and reelected a new leader, a guy named Mark Carney, a guy that most of us had never heard of. He just got parachuted in. And then during his he had a 37-day leadership campaign. He eliminated his opponents one by one using all sorts of weird excuses. And then when you look at the results of his vote, there's so many crazy outliers, but he got installed with less than 150,000 people voting to install him. So that's step one. So he becomes the new leader. Parliament resumes. Nope, they didn't resume Parliament. They called an election they picked the timing for calling the election. That's why I love you guys, because you have fixed election dates. He picked the timing that they thought was suitable for them. They did an election, called the shortest campaign possible, and used the technology that I described, focused on key writings, rejigged the writings just before the election, adjusted the boundaries of the writings, and then during this. So, anyways, the election just happened right now, and when you look at the results the next day, you can see mathematically how they threw so much money at it to just eke out a win, and in the process, he eliminated all his competitors. Like they didn't win their seats. So it's like brilliant. A coup d'etat done in Canada, and people are applauding. Yep.
So, and did you think he was going to win? Or what were your thoughts?
I kind of thought he was going to win because, I mean, I'm an engineer, and I look at it from a statistical point of view. Our country is liberal. It's voted liberal 70% of the time in the last 157 years. So it would have needed de facto to unseat the liberals in this country. It happens rarely. When it does, it's because either we bring in a really brilliant conservative, or the liberals do something so disastrous that they just fall from grace. And that wasn't there. I mean, the liberals had scandal after scandal, but not enough for people to say I've had enough. And the conservatives just didn't put in the candidate that was, that brilliant of a. So it was well played. Yeah, he won. I mean, I'm not surprised that he won. I'm not.
What a different candidate, and who would that have been? Maybe had a different outcome.
Well, actually, I mean, no, like to based on everything we've discussed, and you guys had the same problems. You need what Trump did is extraordinary, right? Trump was able to fight that whole establishment. I mean, the establishment that's there wants to hang on. And it's the same thing in Canada. The establishment, the liberals that are there, they'll do pretty much anything in their power to hang on. And right to the edge of like bending the law. You guys went a little bit further. I mean, I don't know if it's real or not, but if it's real, somebody even went as far as shooting at the candidate, right? To try and take him out. Trump has unbelievable staying power, unbelievable whatever, and he managed to overcome all the efforts to eliminate him. We don't have anybody. We're too small, man. We're a 40 million people country, and we just don't have an individual like that's that strong to go up against the establishment.
He is
You
Trump.
interviewed Max. I mean, Max tried to, Max wanted us to believe that he's that guy. He's not that guy. Max, you're not that guy, right? Max is not that guy. Kevin O'Leary is another guy that's often mentioned. He's not that. We don't have a Trump. There's no example. Well, very few people have a Trump. I don't think there's not many Trumps around the world.
Trump, he's a phenomenon. I mean, and I've said, I mean, again, I voted for him. There's a lot of things that are happening right now that I do not love. But he's a phenomenon. I mean, we're never going to see this in political history ever again, what he's done.
Right. Probably not. You're right. Probably not.
And he's so resilient. I mean, I have to, I mean, he's the most resilient son of a bitch I've ever seen in my life.
Yes. I mean, how old is he, right? Like yeah, they try like, yeah, I mean, we don't even want to replay it. Your viewers know this, but when I look, you're right. When I look at that, like what they threw at him, all the times they tried to get him on felonies and on crimes and all the rumors and all the recordings, and they shot him, and they did everything. They went after all his friends, and he still came out on top. That's resilience beyond anything for a 78. Is he 78,
He'll be
79?
79. He'll be 79,
That's
I think in June.
I would have given up as soon as they hire somebody to say, hey, Marty slept with this hooker or whatever. I'd be like, I'm out, I'm done. And he managed to push past all of that. He ran a brilliant campaign. I mean, he was laying, he laid the plan out for our guy. And I said that very early on. Our guy's name was Pierre, right? Pierre Poilievre. And I said, like, I didn't say it to him personally. He doesn't listen to me, but I was public saying, just run a campaign like Donald. Like, watch what Donald's doing. He's being true to himself, and he's being a conservative or a Republican, a real Republican. He's not fighting the Democrats on the margins or in the center. He's staying like he's distinguishing himself from the Democrats in a way that resonates. But unfortunately, when our guy tried to do that, he immediately he copied Donald too much. And so he became associated with Donald, and Donald here is a boogeyman. So the Eastern Canadians, like they were as scared of Donald as your Democrats, and that resonated. So our guy needed to use the same kind of language as Donald, but not exact, not word for word. And it turned out he used too much word for word, like almost to the point of like, we're going to build a wall. It's like, you shouldn't, you don't say that. I mean, you say we're going to slow down immigration, or use the same. I mean, your ideas, what Donald's doing is brilliant. Like, I think, and we need to do the same thing in our country. Bring back the manufacturing, kickstart your economy, get drill, baby, drill. Control your immigration, regain control of your institutions, get rid of corruption, get rid of waste. Like, perfect. Put a Canadian spin on that, not an American spin, right? The only one I would have copied would be drill, baby, drill. That's a good one. But otherwise, don't. We started talking about that. I mean, yeah, we have a border problem, but it's not the same as your border problem. Our border problem doesn't require a wall, or at least I don't think it does.
Well, and that's what, when I had Tom Marazzo on, and he was talking about when Michael Yon had visited him, and they were touring certain areas, and Tom said to me, and I never even realized it until after he said it, like, the biggest threat to the United States national security is Canada.
Yeah, according to even some of your own documents, it is, because it is an unprotected border that's been taken for granted, and the threat comes in the way of that's how the Chinese interfere or come into your country. That's how people say terrorists. It's like, I mean, it's an easy way into your country. You come to Canada. There's no control to come into Canada, and there's no control to get out at the border. So the border, we'd take, like, when I think of the border, we always think of, the pictures you see of the South, like the people against the wall and the hordes of like South Americans trying to get in and swim across the rivers and stuff like that. And so it's very visual. Our border is almost as open. No, it's wide open, and it's as dangerous, but you don't see it because we've taken it for granted. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Don, that, and I'll admit, like when at first when your president came on and said, I'm imposing tariffs on Canada because you are a threat to us via your border, my first thought was that's insane. How can that be? Because I was thinking of those visual images of the Mexican border. But when you dive into what's happening in our country, you go, yeah, I can see why Donald Trump would be worried about our border. It's a problem. It truly is.
What were your thoughts when you heard him talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, and did it have an impact on this election?
It had a huge impact on the, I mean, two-part question. To me it doesn't, like, I'm a 12th generation Canadian, so my family's been here a long time, 1630s. So I'm not interested in becoming, I love you guys, I love my American cousins, but I'm not interested in joining the States for several reasons. A, because I've been here for so long, and then I also don't think that as an Albertan, I don't think that joining the U.S. solves problems that I already have. Right? It doesn't solve any problems like that. Whatever problems I have, I might as well solve them on my own. As an example, people say, like, if you join the U.S., you get advantage of their stronger American dollar and things like that. I'm like, yeah, we can do that on our own. Like, that's just a self-inflicted problem. The second part of it is, did it resonate, and did it have an impact? It literally was foreign interference in our election. That's how impactful it was. I mean, those early on, during the early parts of our election, when Donald Trump had a picture of himself with the American flag, looking, they are AI generated, but he's looking into Canada, and then the 51st state. It created a crisis, and politicians never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So it created a crisis that the Liberals were able to lock onto, and they presented themselves as the defenders of Canada against, to protect the Canadians from being overtaken by the Americans. A completely nonsense. I mean, do you honestly think that Donald Trump wants to take over Canada, like, as an American?
The things he says. I mean, I wasn't taking him seriously on Greenland or Panama Canal or on Panama, but Michael Jan's been down there for a while, and it looks pretty apparent that they want the Panama Canal. So when he says that about Canada, I don't know.
Yeah, Panama strategically, I could see him wanting that. Canada, you've already devalued, like, we've already devalued ourselves by the fact that we're next to you guys. You're the elephant in the room, and so we have a hard time competing against you, and you can buy everything from us for cheap. So you don't need to go the additional step of, like, taking us over. If you take us over, you inherit 40 million basket cases. Like, we're liberals by definition. Compared to everything in the US, we are liberals. So you'd be taking on 40 million Democrats, and I don't think a lot of American states want that. So, why would you give yourself the headache of trying to take over the whole country? Just keep weaken us, which you've done very well, and then keep buying our resources cheap. Like, that was the thing. That was what the conservatives tried to argue, is that Donald Trump became they portrayed Donald Trump as an existential threat to Canada, and he's like, he is, because we're so weak, and we weakened ourselves. If we were stronger, like we used to be in the 60s, we wouldn't have then there would be no existential threat. If Donald Trump says, I'm not buying cars from you guys, we would have said, that's fine, I don't care. But we are so dependent on you guys that the moment you stop buying something from us, it becomes a threat to us.
What is the sentiment now towards Trump in Canada?
Oh, it's hilarious. The next morning, like, your president loves to troll. Like, he loves to troll, right? I mean, he basically said in a press conference yesterday in the White House that the two candidates hated him. He literally said they hate Trump. He talked about himself in the third person, and he said, but the conservatives hated me more than the liberals, so the liberals won, which is a huge troll, because the liberals were campaigning on a vote for the opposite. For my guy, a vote for Poilievre was a vote for Trump. And it turns out that a vote for Carney was actually a vote for Trump, because Carney was Trump's favorite. We got to digest that. I haven't talked to any Easterners about that statement yesterday, but the Westerners are laughing their heads off, going, you guys literally fell for the Trump, um, for the troll." Yeah.
Yeah, I heard Jordan Peterson talking about that, how Trump preferred Carney to win.
Yeah, what we want to see now, I mean, I'm a bit of a sadistic, but what I want to see is I want to see Mark Carney being invited to the White House in the coming weeks. And I want to see Mark Carney get a dress down the same way that Trump and Vance dressed down poor Zelensky when they came there 4 weeks ago or whatever. I'd like our guy to get a bit of a dressing down just for fun. But
What,
I don't think he'll do it.
you wonder, would he go there, do you think, to meet him, or probably not?
No, I think he will. Well, he'll want to go there for sure. He'll want to go there and puff his chest. Like our guy Mark Carney has been saying, I'm the defender of Trump, and Trump's not taking us seriously. He even said, "I won't talk to Trump unless he respects our sovereignty and respects us." So he'll want to go there and try and puff his chest a little bit. So it could be there could be some interesting dynamics. And I know you probably know Trump better than I do, but I think Donald Trump doesn't like people that are a bit fake and without real accomplishments and puff their chest too much. So it might backfire on our guy if he's not careful.
So what is the likelihood then that Alberta will secede?
That's a long term process. What the victory of the Liberals this week gave the separatist movement in Alberta a huge boost. Absolutely gave us a huge boost. I'm part of that movement. Um, what like Let me step back a little bit for your viewers, right? So Alberta is the last province to join Confederation. It joined in 1905, so like just over 100 years ago, kind of like your Texas or Alaska, or not. What's your last states to join? Hawaii or Alaska. So Alberta joined last, and because it joined last, it gets a real bum deal in Confederation. We don't get equal representation in voting and stuff like that, and for the most part, it didn't bother us the less than fair deal didn't bother us because the rest of Canada kind of still let us do our own thing. We could produce our oil and everything was okay. But in the last 20 years, being an Albertan, you kind of get abused now. Like we're not allowed. People block us. Like our governments don't want us to produce the oil. They're trying to put greenhouse gas emission caps on us. They're taking away our guns. They're making it like they're doing things that, it was bad enough when they just took our money and gave us nothing in return. But now they're actually they're interfering and they're trying to keep us down. And we've had 3 or 4 elections in a row where we keep losing and getting a worse deal. So there's a growing movement now for a better deal. So step one, what we want to do is we want to force a referendum in this province. We want to give a mandate to our premiers, sort of our governor, and tell her, listen, here's permission from the population to go and start negotiating with the rest of Canada for us to either get a better deal or get the hell out. And that's step one. Step two would be to start doing things to protect ourselves from Ottawa. We're talking about collecting our own taxes, implementing our own pension plan, doing things like that. Starting to build the process of being sovereign, more independent within Canada, and then ultimately, if that works, then if the population wanted to join the U.S., we could do it. But I'm one of the believers who thinks that Alberta on its own is a pretty powerful nation. I mean, we're small; we're only 5 million people, but we produce oil like nobody's business, and that makes us extremely powerful.
But so. And I've talked to other people where they said, I don't understand the legal process here, but in terms of, because my first reaction is, well, they're not going to let you, Alberta, just walk away, right? I mean, the amount of oil you guys produce.
They don't want our oil, though. I mean, they want us to produce our oil, but they don't want us. But let's not overcomplicate it. The process exists, so you're literally reversing what we joined at the end. So in the end. We joined in 1905. We're actually the second last province. Newfoundland joined after us, but we joined in 1905. The Confederation existed. There was a set of rules. They're like, okay, we're joining Confederation. to leave, we just reverse that. All we have to do is say we want to leave, and then it's a negotiation. It's allowed in our constitution. We're allowed to say we want out, and nobody else can prevent us legally from leaving. All we have to do is come up to terms, like, what's our share of the national debt? What do we do with the Indians? What do we do with the First Nations? What do we do with shared infrastructure? Ottawa owns the airports. Do we buy it from them and then they become ours in shared lands? What currency? It's a negotiation. It would take time. I don't see it happening in less than 5 years, a decade kind of thing. But it's it legally in our constitution, the process of backing out of the constitution of exists. It's a divorce. It's that's all it is. It's a divorce. Yeah.
And how long would it take for this to fully?
I would say, in different steps, 5 to 10 years. In 5 to 10 years, Alberta could be right on the cusp of like leaving and becoming an independent state or province or nation.
And then what would the United States provide the military, you think, for them, or provide defense?
Yeah, probably, or we can negotiate that with Canada and just say like that, like as an example, that is one of the things that Alberta has. Like Ottawa doesn't, our federal government doesn't spend a lot in the province of Alberta. It spends a lot in the other provinces. But one of the things Alberta has is a good chunk of Canada's military happens to be in Alberta. Yeah, one of our most effective military units, the Princess Patricia's Light Infantry, is in Edmonton. CFB Cold Lake, and some of the big bases are here. So we have a big chunk of military. I would say that's probably one of the agreements we would do with Canada, shared responsibility, or do it on our own. I mean, and there's other examples around the world. Like you got countries like, not everybody needs a military, right? Like, why would we need a military? I mean, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, yeah, these are theoretical questions. These are details that would have to be worked out. Yeah.
But they could be worked out. I mean, you're saying, yeah.
I don't see why they couldn't. I mean, probably one of the most complicated, the currency is easy. Either we take the Canadian one or we adopt our own or adopt the American one. That's easy. Protecting the border, sure, we'll put our own border security, our own police force, our own pension plan, our own tax collection agency. Those things are all easy. The military, the defense, may be a little more complicated. Could be done in steps. We have a First Nation issue. We have treaties with the Indians, with the natives. That would probably be more complicated. Those guys are really good at blocking anything. I mean, we can't build anything in this country anymore because of the Indians. Like they just block everything. So that would be a problem. It's the first problem that's actually crept up right now. Just talking about it, everybody immediately says, well, you won't be able to do it because of the treaties with the First Nations. I'm like, nothing's impossible. Like nothing's impossible.
So now Mark Carney gets reelected. What do you envision then in both the short term and long term for Canada? Because he's still the minority, right? Him and his party are still the minority. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, he's a minority. He dropped in minority. There's been some recounts going on. So right now we have 343 ridings, we call them. So he needs 182 to have a majority. He's at 168 right now, so he's 4 short of a majority. He can rule by getting either a formal coalition or getting an informal coalition. I mean, he can just find four members of parliament from other parties who would side with him once in a while on key, because for the most part, like the worst that happens or what typically happens is if he has a minority and he tries to pass something popular, it'll still pass, right? If he says I want to do a tax break, okay, well, everybody's going to say perfect, and he can rule with that. But if he has a minority and he wants to do something that is semi-controversial, one of our party, somebody can stand up and say, I want this to be what we call a non-confidence vote. So, and he'll get faced with non-confidence votes like 3-4 times a year. And those are the problematic ones. But the last government got by those. They always found a way to get just enough people to come on board and squeak them by. So I think My prediction is he'll squeak by for about a year without doing anything. He'll just stay in power for a year, don't do anything controversial, barely do anything, and hope that there's a big dynamic change somewhere. You know, your guy retires, or some big giant issue comes up or something, and then at that point they'll strategize and they can call a snap election. I mean, we don't have fixed election laws, so he could literally take advantage of the situation a year from now and say, hey, I'll try again. So I think because of the situation we're in, we're just not going to see anything significant happen for the next year. They're just going to buy time and hope for a better occasion to. But that's my fear. So at some point, they're going to try and, if the Liberals get in with another majority, they have a pretty nasty agenda that they'll keep implementing. Like our Liberals haven't reversed. Like they are a subsidiary of the World Economic Forum. They're not. Mark Carney in particular, he's not reversing on net zero. He's written a book on it. I mean, he believes that climate change is an existential threat. He'll try and given full power, he'll kill the oil industry, go net zero, electrify everything, take away our guns, and implement the agenda UN 2030. That's his plan.
Didn't they already pass making sales or transfer of handguns illegal?
It's yes, they grandfathered handguns. So I have handguns, so we get to keep the ones we have. Once, if I were to die tomorrow, I can't even pass them to my sons, can't sell them to anybody. All I can do with my current handguns would be to turn them into the police for destruction. So that's an example. They've also passed all these they banned all sorts of firearms, but they did it with orders. And actually, one of the good things about the Liberals, it's a bad thing, but it's a good thing, they're terrible at implementing stuff. So they do things, but they do it half-ass, and then it never really fully happens. So the handgun ban is an example. Like, it's just they're not very good at governing and at working our systems and passing laws. So I always count on that. That's one thing. It's weird, but I count on that. Our governments are so inefficient that they can't, even when they do try to pass a law and have approval to do it, they suck at it. Yeah.
So the next year is going to be more of a, not much is going to change in your view?
No, they can't. Thankfully, they can't. Not at the, well, we'll know. I mean, the election occurred on Monday. I guarantee you there's a ton of negotiation going on right now. Like, our elections happen. Here's the next step is, after our election happens, our parliament, our house isn't set to resume for another 3 or 4 weeks, kind of thing. So, and what Carney's doing right now is he's not going to the governor general. That's our system here. The governor general is the king's representative. What Carney needs to do right now after the election, like, we don't have it. The parties have to agree among themselves on who won the election, and then they go to the governor general, and Carney has to go to the governor general and say, I think I can rule without getting defeated in a non-confidence vote for the foreseeable future. And the governor general is supposed to say, why do you think that? And he's going to say, well, I have 169 of my own MPs, and then I've convinced these 4 or 5 to join in a coalition, and they've promised me that, they won't defeat me. If the governor general believes him, which she'll give him the benefit of the doubt the first time he does this, then he'll form government. She'll tell him, I want you to form government. He hasn't done that step. So we're all waiting for that step. Like, so they're negotiating right now before anybody goes to the governor. Nobody's conceded. Nobody said I win. Like, we're still technically in limbo at this point. But it's the margins. Mathematically, we're all scratching our heads going, how does he get a majority? Because he doesn't have one. So he's going to have to go and convince the governor general. Now, the governor general, for all intents and purposes, is a liberal because she's installed. She's not elected. She was appointed by the previous government. So the governor general is in the pockets of the liberals. She'll just do whatever Mark Carney asks her.
Do you believe in the voting system in Canada any longer?
I've lost a lot of faith in it because the voting system works. The voting system works, but the system's rigged. Like, it's rigged so that the liberals will keep winning. So yeah. I guess to answer your question pragmatically, no, I do not believe in the voting system, which is why I'm an Alberta separatist.
I think if the United States, if the liberals ever get back in control, I mean, they are gonna come at the other side full authoritarian. I can never say it. Full
Authoritarian.
communist, yeah,
Yeah.
authoritarian. People are gonna get jailed. If that ever happens,
When and we're already doing that, right? Like we've jailed people. Like we have political prisoners in this country, which is crazy, right? Like I'm you've I mean, you talked to Tom Marazzo. So Tom was part of the Freedom Convoy. He was a spokesman for them, but he got away luckily scot free because some of the other people who dared, like all they did was volunteer to be, you know, liaisons with the between the truckers and the government, and all those people who stepped up to be liaison were jailed. I mean, Tamara Litch and Chris Barber and what we call the Coots Four. Like we have political prisoners in this country. Like if you go against the state here, the state will hit you with every resource it has. Censorship, like what we're doing right now, that's one of my biggest fears. I mean, yeah, they're trying to take away the guns. They've been unsuccessful, but you know we find, but they have taken away the guns, a lot of them, and they're going to take away our voice. You. I mean, that's what you're hinting at, right? Your next government, if it became a democratic government, would do that. Our liberals, I fear they're going to try. They've been trying to do this for years now, and they hide it in all sorts of ways. But ultimately, yeah, they want to silence us.
I think it's inevitable here in the United States. And again, people get mad at me for saying this, but coming back full circle to our conversation, and I know I'm running out of time here with you, but from a technology point of view, it's not stopping. It's going to continue to move forward. So with that will be tighter controls on people, and COVID showed us that. And I talked to my mother every morning, and I was talking about this Real ID because I have to fly next month, and I have a passport, which they say you can use a passport. But part of me is like, you know what? I'm just going to get this Real ID because at some point they're going to make it where you can't drive without it.
Explain that to me. So that's something unique to you, to America, like to the U.S. You have something called what?
It's called a Real ID that you have to get
Okay.
by like May 8th, and they were trying to implement it, and COVID delayed it, and they kept getting delayed. And now Kristi Noem, who's a DHS director, was on a commercial recently and saying you need your Real ID by May 8th. You could suffer or experience delays in
Yeah.
travel without this Real ID. And
Oh yeah.
it's a black. I think it's a black star. It's a driver's license, but with a black
We had
star on it.
that. We had that during COVID. I mean, it was called the Rive Can as an example. I mean, COVID was an absolute what do you call it? A rehearsal for a lot of things. I mean, if you told, like, did you guys have vaccine? Did you ever require passports, like proof of vaccination to get anywhere? Was that a thing in the U.S.
It,
or?
it was in certain cities and certain businesses that would not allow you in. Or for
Yeah,
example, for a restaurant, they might require it, but you could sit on the patio. Like my friend Molly James, who
sure.
was let go of her, she was ER in New York. She would have to go have lunch. She would have to sit outside or get it to
So
go.
okay. So you they tested the waters with the idea. For us, it was full blown, full on, right? I mean, I couldn't go to a restaurant because I had no way. I didn't get vaccinated. I had no way of obtaining a vaccine passport. It was literally a QR code. I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't go to different stores. I couldn't fly. That was a complete violation of our rights. And they said, well, we're suspending those rights because in our constitution we have this thing called the notwithstanding clause. So in the interest of whatever national security, you can't fly. Anything that was related to transportation is governed by our federal government. I couldn't fly. I couldn't get on a train. I couldn't get on a ferry, which was a violation of my constitutional right. If like I have no other. People said, well, flying is a. They made the argument that flying was a privilege or a luxury. It's like, no, flying is not a luxury in a country like Canada, where an entire province called Newfoundland is an island. So how do I go to the island of Newfoundland if I can't fly there, get on a boat, a ferry, or any other form because I don't have. So, anyways, they violated our rights and consequently, it was found to be they were found to be violations, but nothing happened. I mean, our government imposed, our government, you interviewed truckers or Tom Morezzo. I mean, our government declared emergency martial law. Like they imposed the Emergency Measures Act on us under a new name, but yeah, they locked us down during COVID. So are they going to stop trying to do that? Absolutely not. Like this, it was just a dress rehearsal. COVID was a dress rehearsal. They're going to keep doing that.
Well, and this is the thing too, right? And ties into that. They don't need to send boots on the ground, stomping down your door anymore.
Nope.
I've had discussions with people, older former military, where they think that'll occur. It's like, no, let's take a step back. What do? They turn your credit card off.
They froze bank accounts.
Froze bank accounts, so they'll debank you.
Yep.
I've had people on the show from the United States. They've been debanked. They've been attacked. This was prior to even the Trump lawfare. They are experiencing lawfare from Letitia James in New York. They couldn't even set up. They would try to set up conferences for their for the speaking engagements, and as soon as the conference would find out, cancel them.
They debanked us. They froze bank accounts. They even froze like third party groups like GoFundMe, right? Like the we were using GoFundMe to fund that. They canceled that. Yeah, I mean actually weird. We brought it all the way around. Like we're back to like this. Yeah, I'll disable your phone. If I disable your phone, man, you're
done.
Like for most humans are done, right? They're completely frozen. They wouldn't even know how to get from A to B. And then yeah, I'll send a little code and I'll freeze your car in your driveway. You're done. Absolutely.
And social media, if they don't deactivate your account, they'll decrease the visibility that nobody will even see your post.
Well, we've done that already in this country, right? I mean, that was one weird one that backfired against the Liberals about 3 years ago. The Liberals wanted a bigger chunk of internet revenue, and they targeted Meta and some of the big media organizations and said you need to pay the content providers, and Facebook said no, not having any of that. Well, that backfired on the Liberals because suddenly this platform called Facebook had no news on it. There's no news in Canada. There's no news on Facebook. Like the CBC cannot post something on Facebook because Facebook refuses to pay for it and refuses to allow it. So that backfired. So a propaganda channel that the government relied on disappeared. They'll fix that eventually, but just to your point, yes, they're trying to control that. I mean, I have a big account on Twitter. I have 130,000 followers. If I was an American, I would have 1 million followers. Like that, I'm sure of that. There's very few Canadian. I'm not a superstar. I'm not a movie actor or a hockey player or anything like that. I'm literally Joe Average. So I have 130,000 followers, and I share that kind of knowledge with people all the time. I show what being throttled looks like, because people say, "Oh, you're making that up." I'm like, no. Let me show you. I can demonstrate it. I can put an unpopular tweet and I can watch it disappear. And in fact, something happened after the election. My engagement went sky high. The election's over right now. I'm no longer shadow banned. I'm back to being normal.
Yeah. So where is your focus in right now, and what let people know, where you're giving your attention to?
Online I'm known as Marty Up North, unacceptable fact checker. So Marty Up North, fact checker. Unacceptable I added that years ago because I'm a pain in the butt to the government and I don't fit their norm, but I'm a fact checker. That's at the core. That's what I am, right? Like to me, there's always two sides to every story, and like I'm not about truth. I never claim to be the truth. I'm the guy who pick any topic, and that's how I start my day. I wake up in the morning and then I'll see something said by a politician, doesn't matter their stripes, what color or anything like that, or a person or a media, and I like to dissect it and explore it, right? I mean, like as an example, during the campaign here, all parties, were asked, what do you plan on doing about the housing crisis? And they all pulled numbers out of the air. Like they all said, it was funny. They're doing a debate one night, and one guy goes, "Oh, we're going to build 500,000 homes." The other guy goes, "We're going to build 800,000. We're going to build 6." Well, man, I had fun all week long, just busting that apart. Like, what does this mean, right? Like, how many houses have been built? What's involved? So that's what I am. I'm a fact checker but because I live in a crazy country where I can never predict, like every week when I do shows like this with people, I can't predict anymore what's going to happen. And I can't even predict the silliness of what's going to happen. So I never run out of content. Like I have a lot of fun holding politicians of various stripes accountable because I find them to be just a goofy class of citizens. More specifically, though, in the short term, I'm definitely focused on trying to get Alberta a better deal within our confederation.
Have you considered moving out of Canada?
No, I'm retired now, and I mean, if you saw where I live, I have the Rocky Mountains in my backyard. Everything's gorgeous for me. One of the things I managed to do successfully is because we've had so many liberal governments over the last 30 years. I built up a defense against the liberal governments. I'm one of those guys where, you know, I'm not freaking out that Carney won this week because I'm not a prepper, but you get a sense of who I am, right? I'm a guy who thinks about things and gets prepared. So I'll weather the storm and I'll stay here.
Right.
Like I said, I'm 12th generation. My kids are 13th generation. I'm not. I love visiting you guys. I go there all the time, but I'm not. I don't want to live there.
Well, plus with that DVD collection, you can't leave that behind.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, side note, last question. Give me if you're going to watch a movie on that shelf, pick one right now that you would watch.
If I had to watch,
I can't see any of those titles. So,
Pulp Fiction. I just saw Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction. Anything by Quentin Tarantino is a fantastic guy. I mean, I remember the first. I got goosebumps just thinking about it. Like I haven't watched Pulp Fiction in a while, but I could probably recite Pulp Fiction. Great, you know, unique genre, right? Like one of the first ones to do that flip you backwards and tell the story from the back to the front and all the twists in it and all the great actings and all the great lines. Yeah, Pulp Fiction.
I'll tell you a funny story. My mother will appreciate this because she listens to all my episodes. When I saw that movie, I was a junior in high school. My parents were separated at that point, and I was living with my father, and my mother came over to pick me up, and we love to go to the movies. So I said, let's go to the movies. Let's go see Pulp Fiction. I'm 15 years old, 15 or 16. And, you know, back then, as you know, you just had a little bit of trailer that was on television. You know, there was no internet, there were no iPhones, and I thought John Travolta from Grease and Bruce Willis from Die Hard. Yeah. Cool. So we're in the movie, and then the whole GIMP and the gag ball, I didn't know what any of that stuff meant. And my mother was so embarrassed by that whole scene. And we still talk about that. And my mother goes, yeah, my coworker told me to go see that movie. I don't know what they were thinking of me taking you and blah, blah, blah. But I love that movie. And I love the last half hour, the dining scene. Yeah. Or 20 minutes or whatever. It is so, even before that, like cleaning up the body and like
yeah, like all the iconic lines, right? Like who's Zed? Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead. You know, like yeah, like Quentin Tarantino, and he's had all his movies have been fantastic. I mean, my story about Pulp Fiction is I remember going to see it with one of my buddies. I was a little bit older, and all I remember is we were laughing in the theater. And I was embarrassed because me and my buddy were like, how come we're the only ones who find this funny? We actually found the movie funny and we were laughing, and a lot of people around us weren't. So probably the same, you know, a bit like you, they probably got caught off guard. It wasn't the movie they expected. But for me, I mean, Quentin Tarantino, you got to be prepared for something a little bit, you know, off color.
And I've gone back and rewatched Jackie Brown, which at the time, I mean, I was just barely in college and I didn't appreciate the way I do, you know, now watching it. That movie's fantastic. The writing in that is fantastic. The music is fantastic. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that movie's, I could put that movie on. I mean, I've seen it, I don't know how many times.
See, I have a hard time with that one. That's
I love
not my
it.
favorite, you know, that's not my favorite. For me, my favorite one is definitely Inglourious Bastards. I mean, that
was great too.
Because of the French. I mean, Christophe is amazing in French and English and Spanish and German or Italian, not Spanish. But yeah, great movie.
That was great too. I love the end of that when the I can't think of the actor's name off the top of my head. He's like, "You'll be shot for this." He goes, "Nah, I've been chewed out. They don't give a shit about him."
Brad Pitt. Yeah, I've been chewed out. Yeah, I'll make that deal.
And he's like, "Nah, they don't give a shit about him. They care about you."
I forgot about that line. Yeah, that's a good line. I've been chewed out.
Where can people find you?
I'm online on Twitter, Marty Up North. If you just type Marty Up North, you'll find me. Actually, just a little plug if people are interested. Prior to Twitter, I do still have a channel called Marty Up North on YouTube. Zero politics on Marty Up North on YouTube, where my introduction to the world of social media was documenting. I'm an outdoor guy, love hiking, outdoor adventures, and traveling in the mountains. And so on my YouTube channel called Marty Up North, I have about 450 videos. Actually, I think I have 500 now, and I've documented pretty much any hike that you can think of in the Canadian Rockies. So if anybody's ever coming up to the Canadian Rockies and wants an idea of where to go hike to escape the technology, because that's what I do when I escape. Like I literally go to the mountains and I go hiking for 10 days at a time and I disappear. I don't bring a cell phone. I don't bring a satellite. People always say that, like, bring a Garmin, Martin. Like, what if something happens? I'm like, I'm not going out there. If something happens out there, then I file the plan and you guys can come look at me 5 days from now when I haven't returned home. But I'm not going out there. I'm going out there to escape and step back in time. And that would be that I would be untrue to myself if I brought a device out there. So that, yeah. So if you want to see crazy outdoor adventures, find Marty Up North on YouTube. Otherwise, find me on Twitter. I love to interact with people. I'm known for that. I'm a real person, and I love the instantaneous feedback of Twitter. X.
And for people that, just so that if they Google your full name too, if they forget Marty Up North, you want to give that out too as well?
Full name is Martin. Last name is Belanger. It's Belanger. Yeah.
Marty, I appreciate.
You'll find me. Retired engineer. I'm on LinkedIn. Got a long profile. Worked on some pretty cool projects over the years.
Yeah, we should do
including in your neck of the woods. Actually, I worked in Utah for a while.
Yeah, we should do another one talking more about technology and AI and everything. I mean, that in of itself we could spend hours discussing, and I find it so relevant to where we're at now, and it's not going away anytime soon.
No. Yep. Awesome.
Marty, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you connecting so quickly, and I look forward to continuing to follow your work and more conversations ahead.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks to all your viewers. Cheers, everyone.
Mic drop.